But
Hey, Scott from aristocop.com here.
And Seth from SethMarkwood.com.
And George Bruno, otherwise known as the Sultan from Philadelphia.
Fantastic. And together, along with you, the four of us this week, are Markwood Men's Breakfast Club. And howdy, gentlemen. How you doing?
Greetings.
Great. So happy to have another guest here, and we have an opportunity to do another live streaming event. This is fun.
Well, it's exciting. If nothing else, it's exciting. We're really happy to have you here, George. You know, I tried to connect with you when I was in, where was I? Lancaster, months ago. Yeah. And it just didn't happen. And so it's for as many years as I have felt like I have known you, we have never spoken before. So this is exciting.
Yeah, that's good.
So I was curious. I have this burner Gmail account that I have all the comments and subscriptions and things from YouTube. Just go to that account. And I searched that to see, well, how long have we been conversing with each other? And it's like, well, it hasn't been that long. And then I realized, no, wait a second. I should search for Gray Bailey. And Gray Bailey. Yeah. We were chatting with each other back in 2017.
Yes. Yeah.
So first off, just tell us your story.
Well, it all depends which one you want to hear.
The most entertaining.
Several stories. Well, probably the one that most people know me by is through the YouTube channel, which I actually revealed tonight on the pregame show that I view my life as kind of a ministry in a weird kind of way. And some people would say, are you religious? I am religious, although ministry just means to be a servant, to serve people. And my career, and careers, I should say, have been all service and servant related. And it's something that I enjoy doing. And my YouTube channel is a ministry. There's people that get ministered to on my channel that would never walk into a church, never talk to a minister. And in the same way that some people might say like marijuana is the gateway drug to heroin, I'm kind of like the gateway drug to faith for a lot of people. You know, I'm not the hardcore minister, even though I studied for it. I went to seminary, and my life just never, like, when I tell people that I studied to be a pastor, they're like, what? And I just never got it together in that way. Although my first job out of graduate school, I was the associate pastor of youth and visitation at a church. And I'll never forget when I left that church a few years later, and I was interviewing at other churches, and I was a young man. I was in my mid-20s. And the new pastor asked the old pastor, how would you describe George? And the pastor that I had worked for said, let me just say he's a maverick. And I actually had to look that word up because I wasn't sure. And I think he was really being kind with me. And so since then, I have utilized that label and take it very seriously, because I'm not a clerical collar wearing minister kind of guy. I'm not a stand from the pulpit kind of guy. I'm a street preacher-ish kind of fellow, a prison ministry-ish kind of guy. And that's what my YouTube channel really is all about. It's the gateway drug to faith. But it also shows, I I don't show my flaws on purpose. They just happen to slip out. And but I've got 3 children. I'm divorced and I have 3 children, although I don't define myself as a divorced man like I used to. And I've always wanted 6 children. When I was a very young man, I said, I'm going to have 6 kids. And I ended up having 3 children, biological children, but I have hundreds of sons and daughters all over the world. There's nowhere that I can travel, nowhere. And I mean, nowhere, where someone doesn't come up to me and say, I watch you every single day. You are. One guy came up to me last year, and this is weird because I even have young black men as sons. A young black man came up to me at a conference and said to me, you know how you always joke around and you say, that you're the father that many never had? And I go, yeah. And he says, you literally are the father that I never had. Mm. He didn't crack a smile. Like, yeah. I was waiting for the punchline. And so that was last year. He was probably 18 years old. So literally since he was 14, he was watching me. And I just saw his eyes get a little bit misty. And that's all I need to see. And then I got to start taking a deep breath and like, okay, everything's. And I'm like, well, get over here, son. I give him a big hug. And that story has been repeated more times than I can count. I have Asian sons. I have female sons. It's weird. I have a young gal in Romania who might even be watching this tonight, who said to me, you're like the grandfather that I never had. And I take that very seriously. I used to joke around about, hey, I'm the father you never had, thinking it was like I'm the cool uncle, like I was referring to myself. And then getting about 100 emails a day from people for the past about 2.5 years, I have taken that so seriously that, and of course, one of the things when you're online like this, and often, which like you guys are, rule number 1, don't take yourself seriously. You just gotta, right. But when you get things like you saved my life, I had the rope around my neck. I had the bottle of pills. I had my wife left and took my 3 kids with me. I don't know where to go. Things like that. And then after a few years of hearing that, because I left that world about 16 years ago when I left the profession of being a therapist, which was what my profession is. I have 2 lives. I have a profession and I have a trade. And the trade is I'm a barber. And that's my family trade. So, and I come from a family where they said, always have something you could do with your hands. So even if you go to college, have something you can do with your hands, which is kind of funny now because who are most of the people that are unemployed right now? College graduates. Who are the ones that we're paying a lot of money to? Auto mechanics, plumbers, electricians, They're not standing in unemployment lines. So, I guess most people are staying in their house right now. So, yeah. But I think the trade that I have has been a ministry because I'm halfway through cutting a man's hair, and all of a sudden he tells me something he would never ever share with anyone else because I'm in a private men's grooming studio. I work in a salon and I have a room in the back of the salon with 3 windows in it. It's private. The salon has 6 women who are cutting the hair of 6 women, and there's blow dryers going and wine being drunk and girl talk everywhere. But in my room, it's me and another man for an hour. And I play the role of confessor and listen to men and give them tissues to dry their eyes. And that has turned into a ministry. And when men were asking me to answer the same question over and over and over, I thought to myself, I'm going to make a YouTube channel, which was Gray Bailey. I'm going to make a YouTube channel, and rather than answering the same question 100 times, I'm going to just make it a Q&A-ish type of channel about men's grooming, skincare, and this kind of thing. And I was happy to do that because I was so excited about my trade. And you can't talk to men about themselves, how they look, how they appear professionally, how they appear to their wives, their girlfriends, their children, without talking about the man. So it went from talking about beards and hair to talking about the man behind the beard. And it morphed from a men's grooming channel to a channel about men, for men, by a man who has been there, who has, how can I put it, came up the hard way. I came up the hard way. That's the nicest way that I can put it. And then the audience grew and grew and grew and grew. And next thing you know, I have the world's largest home church, as one of my guys said. And it has been my way of serving people. Those that are attracted to the message stay. Those that don't like it go. Those that don't like the personality of the man behind the channel, they go, whatever. And I view it this way. Not every church is for everybody, and not every channel is for everybody. So one of the things that I did was I'm talking to men about men's issues and what was the best thing to do when you're just going to talk for 30 minutes or 60 minutes. You pour a drink, you fire up a cigar or a pipe, and you talk. Yeah. And I probably ended up joining the ranks of the piping ramblers. You know what I mean? The guys that just like smoke a pipe, talk. And I didn't even know. People would say, "Oh, so glad that you're in the YTPC." And I'm like, "The what?
What? In the what?" Yes.
I honestly just found out what that meant about a year ago. Scott, you might be the one who told me what that meant. I was like, the YouTube. I said, the YouTube Pipe Club? And I think it was you that said, no, it's the YouTube Pipe community. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, and then I did a video on why I smoke a pipe, and how it brings me joy, and how I take a Ziploc bag and I put a small pipe in it and a little bit of tobacco and a tamper and a lighter, and I will give it to someone who's inquiring as I'm smoking out in public somewhere. It's like the guy that taught me always carry 2 handkerchiefs. And I said, why carry 2? They said, one for yourself and always a clean, fresh one for anyone who might need it. Like, you don't want it back, obviously. And piping is the same way. When someone would say to me, wow, I like the way that smells. Gee, I haven't seen anyone smoke a pipe in years. And I'm like, well, funny that you say that. And I will pull out one of my pipe bits, and that's when Missouri Meerschaum was doing the. How many pipes were they putting in a bag? What was that?
Originally, it was like 10 seconds. Yeah. Back when they had piles and piles and piles of seconds. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would buy those bags of seconds, like you have. I mean, I was wearing them out, and. So one day I did a video on why I smoke a pipe and how it's a spiritual experience for me, whereas cigars are more of a social experience. Guys sitting around smoking cigars. But piping, guys don't talk a lot. It's not like a circle of guys going around, talking while smoking. Guys sitting around smoking a pipe are usually quiet, and they are men of few words. And what's fascinating is I have I made the huge leap of saying that my pipe smoking is like prayer. It's when I ponder, it's when I think, it's when God tells me stuff, it's when he tells me to shut up, stop this, do that. So it's been a spiritual experience. And I did a video on that, and that video is over 1 million hits.
Oh,
and I'm like, how in the world? I mean, the last time I checked, it was at 1 million. And I know it's beyond that now. And then I did another one. And I'm not discounting the freak factor either, because at the time I had this huge white beard, which was just an oddity. It looked odd. If you're just scrolling through channels and you see a guy with a huge white beard, you just got to stop and say,
right,
what is this? So for 2 years, I had this monstrous white beard, and I smoked a pipe and talked about life. And I have all these videos that have like over 1 million views, and people know me as that guy. And then I took the beard off, and I think I lost something like 20,000 subscribers in one day after I shaved the beard.
I remember you talking about that. I could not believe that.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's my story, guys. That's it. And
so when you first turned on the camera and you thought, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do this thing on YouTube, did you have in your mind that there was X number of video topics to talk about, or what, did you know where you were headed from the start?
No, and I still don't know. And
good answer.
People ask me all the time, where are you going with this? How do you get your topics? Well, I'm a voracious reader and observer of life. And as long as there are people on this earth, as long as there is news, as long as there are babies being born and people dying, I have topics.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
So I know a couple of things about George that I bet Seth doesn't know. I'm just guessing.
Almost certainly.
So, George, when you were born, you used to be able to count to 11 really easily, if I recall. That's your story,
true,
right? That's you? Okay.
Yes, it is.
I was thinking, I sure hope I have my facts correct there.
Yeah. I was born with 6 fingers on my right hand.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were a swordsman, wouldn't that come in handy?
Oh, well.
Absolutely.
Unless there was someone after you.
It made shopping. I mean, literally, I wore mittens. It makes glove buying very difficult.
I bet it would.
People would ask me all the time, why do you have a glove on one hand and mitten on the other? Not really. I just made that up just now because it sounded funny.
I like it.
So for how long?
Not long after I was born, the doc said, look, we can keep it or we can take it off and he won't remember a thing. And I guess in the same way that I don't remember the doc cutting off another piece of flesh, the 6th finger left. So, yeah. I'm bizarre enough to wish that they put it like in a jar. And like, I wish I had the jar, with like a little finger in it.
For sure. I'd
Some
that on
strange
back.
medical oddity or something.
Yeah.
Or if they did like a plaster cast of it, that would have been fun.
Seth has some of his body parts in a jar. He likes to show that to people too.
Yeah, I broke my femur when I was 8, and then again when I was 12, and in the time between, the bone had grown over the hardware they had installed, and they needed to remove. And so they had to take hardware out, and then also a chunk of my leg bone. That the doctor said, "You're 12. You'll probably think this is cool. Here you go." And so I've got a piece of my bone in a jar.
How cool!
Yeah, super super cool.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so at Seth's wedding reception, at the various tables set around, they had some of the books that his wife enjoys the most, and some that Seth enjoyed, and little knickknacks that related to their life to that point, their courtship. And on one of the tables was this jar, this little mystery jar with hardware and what appeared to be bone.
That's very interesting.
Yep. Yep. It's all a 12-year-old could hope for. I've always wanted to do something with it, carve it into a necklace or something, and just never have.
Pipe tamper?
Yeah.
Make a tamper out of it or something.
Yeah.
So George, you've made tampers for people. In fact, what do you have there in front of you? What sort of smoking implements do you keep handy?
Well, first and foremost is a yellow golf tee with Aristocob on it.
Nice.
And that came in a package with this pipe here, which is what John Keller made me. And he sent this along with this pipe. I probably have the honor of being the most gifted pipe smoker in the world. Every pipe maker has wanted to make me a pipe.
That's cool.
And I'm trying to think how many. I haven't bought a lot of pipes except my cobs. I like my cobs.
Yeah.
I think I purchased a Savinelli 673, and that's it. And I have a Dr. Grabo, which was my first pipe from decades ago. But everybody who makes pipes has made me a pipe.
That's nice.
And it's been interesting. So this is a John Keller, and then the tampers. They always send me their tampers or something, and I do have this is a switchblade that I converted into a tamper. So it's literally.
It's a comb. Yes, okay. Just like Fonzie had.
You remember these? It used to be a switchblade comb.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You could see in the back of comic books. So I took the comb out and I took a check tool and installed it in the end. So it's a switch tamper.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What else do I have here? I have this was made by Mr. Boswell, PA Piper, Mike Rizzo, who is one of my haircutting clients. He brings me gifts every time he gets a haircut or a beard trim. Let's see. He brought me this tin of. That's another thing. I get tobacco like you have no idea.
I have some idea.
Cornell and Deal 20th anniversary XX Flake, which I'm smoking that tonight. He brought me that a couple weeks ago, but he brought me a Country Gentleman with a custom bit, and then this tamper, which looks like a hammer. It does. It's got the shape of a hammer, and it's metal on the end, and it's made of briar. Might have been a piece of scrap or something, and I like that. That's kind of a cool. It was a cool gift. I have a Revlon tamper. Revlon, as in the same company that makes makeup. They also make like nail clippers and nail files. But at one time, I don't know. Someone told me that was in the 50s. They made a pipe tool, and it's a three-part pipe tool made by Revlon. It's got the tamper. It's got the Revlon logo there. It has a pick and then a little knife for cutting flake tobacco. So it's got three tools, and I think that's kind of that's very unique. I've never seen anyone have one of these before.
I haven't either.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've researched. I don't know if you can find any history on that. And then this is an organ pull from a 150-year-old German pipe organ. This is actual ivory, and it's 150 years old, and it's the Principal 8, which is the 8-foot big, thick pipe on a pipe organ at the end of a hymn when they make the stained glass windows rattle.
Yes.
That's the pull that they pull out on the pipe organ. So I saw that in a thrift store, and I thought to myself, like, nope, who would know that? I'm a big pipe organ fan, and I love the history of pipe organs, and it's the German spelling Prinzipal, Prinzipal, and of course you can't make anything out of ivory anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think I got this for maybe $2 or $3. I don't even think they knew what they had there. And for me, it just makes a great tamper.
That's so cool.
It's a strange piece of history that I will pass on to one of my sons. And that's what I have in front of me right now.
That's cool.
Yep. Yeah. Something different, right?
Seth at one time was going to start a blog dedicated to tampers. He bought the URL and everything. What was the URL, Seth?
Yeah. Well, a little bit of backstory. So I enjoy smoking cigars, or used to enjoy smoking cigars. 6.5, almost 7 years ago, when Dad had the idea to start our YouTube channel, he said, we'll smoke a pipe, and I was not very proficient. I didn't like smoking a pipe because it felt like a pipe failure, because it was going out all the time and just felt like too much work compared to smoking a cigar. And so even to this day, the only time I really ever smoke a pipe is either when I'm with him and we're filming, or if I'm hanging out around the campfire. And so it's not something I like kissing my wife, and she doesn't like it when I smoke a pipe. So and so we would go to these pipe shows, and I'm just not a buyer because I have all the corncob pipes. I've got all the pipe tobacco that I need. And so I was, we would go, and it was just not fun to browse. And so I thought, I'll have a thing. My thing will be interesting tampers, and see if I can find some interesting tampers. And I got inspired by the Keep Calm. I don't know if you remember those posters and those campaigns. Keep Calm.
Yeah.
And so I started my own campaign, Keep Calm and Tampon. Our viewers didn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a whole crossover audience there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So
your blog was the Tampon Reviews, right?
Tamponreviews.com. Yep. With the different tampers.
That's better than Keep On and Maxi Pad. So.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
That's funny.
That's right. Funny. So all of our 3 millennial and Gen Z viewers got the joke, and everyone else didn't care for it.
Right. They don't have a sense of humor.
Those are the guys that come on before we go live and hit the thumbs down button.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why I said there's only 2. My God. I mean, that's.
Don't worry, we're up to 4 now. So. Up to 4.
Excellent. Good.
Okay.
Stirring the waters.
I think like you, George, Seth and I just like people. We have this thing about people, and we've got friends of all types, and some of those friends, unfortunately, don't like people, and they don't like people that aren't exactly like them. So it's frustrating. But I feel sorry for them that they don't enjoy the uniqueness in others. I don't want to have friends that are just like me. I'm not that fond of me to want a bunch of me's hanging around.
Right.
Amen to that.
I like people. There's a lot of memes going around with who was the little girl, the daughter on the Addams Family?
Wednesday Addams.
Wednesday, yes. And Pugsley was the boy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of memes with Wednesday with just the two words on the bottom, people, ooh. And it's like, it's such a anti-people, I don't know, I guess, what would you call it? Misanthropic.
Yeah.
And it's funny to jump on that bandwagon, but I really do like people. I don't want to live near people. Like my thing is this, I want to live in a house that you can't see from the road. That's my goal at my ripe young age. And I've always said, I'm a great guy at a party. I'm a great guy at a business card exchange, at a networking event. And I am good with people. I just don't want to live near them. And I have perfected the art of solitude to the point where if I can't get to family on the holidays, I spend most of my holidays hiking. Literally, Christmas Day, hiking. New Year's Day, hiking. Easter Sunday, hiking. And now that the kids are older, they don't go run. They're not running to me like I thought they would. Like John, the family therapist, John Bradshaw, said that he said, when I was young, I thought that when I got old, I'd be sitting in a chair, the fireplace is burning, and all my kids would be gathered around me, like just taking notes as I'm sharing my wisdom about life. He goes, little did I know that they wanted to start their own families. And me and my wife are just sitting around looking at each other going, want to go eat Chinese instead of cooking? And so dealing with life as it is versus what I want it to be, having my eyes opened and awakened to the realities of life has been just such a wonderful thing. So I have said that when I want action, I go to where the action is. I don't want to live amongst the action. And I can go to a party, I can go to a networking event and be the host and shake every hand as they walk in the door, remember the names, one little tidbit about their life, their career, whatever. I am that guy, but I'm also the guy that on a day off, I don't rush to fill those hours with people. I'm like, ooh, time off. I can read. Ooh, time off. I can smoke a pipe and be by myself. I've been known to literally not do anything on the. What are you doing for Thanksgiving? Like if I couldn't make it to my family in Florida, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? I'm like, nothing. And they're like, what? And then I'd get all the sympathy invites. Well, come on over. Come on, spend Thanksgiving with us. I'm like, no, really, I really don't want to. I'm enjoying my time by myself with no TV, no radio, just me and a book and a pipe or a cigar, and I'm having a blast. And I've gone on vacation by myself. I've gone backpacking by myself. I go hiking 5 miles in the woods, string up a hammock. I have a stack of comic books, and all I hear is the squirrels going up and down trees and birds. And it was like a religious experience. I remember going away for a weekend, hiking, backpacking, and I didn't say a word from Friday until Monday morning. Did you ever not talk for 3 days, 2.5 days?
Yeah.
It's monk-ish. It's vow of silence-ish. It's transformative, where you wake up and you don't have to talk. You don't have to say hi. You don't have to do anything. And I mean, I would say hi to the chipmunks, and that's really it. I mean, what was that song? I mentioned it the other day on the Daybreak show by Little River Band. Remember the song "Cool Change"?
Oh, yeah.
And he's talking about being out in a boat alone, and he says, "The albatross and the whales, they are my brothers."
Yeah.
And I get that. That's not just some weird philosophical thing. I get it. I 100% get that. And I love it, and I cherish it. And I've talked about that. I did a show the other night on conversations that you must have before you get married. And one of those questions that young men and women, one of the conversations that young men and women have to have is, what about free time? What about alone time? How much time do you need to spend with one another? Which, of course, the quarantine and lockdown across the world pretty much has made people look at each other and spend time with each other that they haven't had to do in years. It's almost like instant empty nest syndrome for everybody.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was married, I had my office in the basement. I had a walkout basement. And I took the 4th bedroom in the house, which is up on the 3rd floor, and my wife was into crafts, and whenever she wanted to do crafts and make earrings and jewelry and and beads and all this kind of stuff, she'd take out all this stuff and put it on the dining room table, and I said, "How about I make you a craft room? And you can have your thread and your beads and your wire and your jewelry making stuff up there." And so she was up on the 3rd floor. I was down in the 4th, in the basement, the walkout basement. And we would text each other, "When do you want to eat?" And it was literally, I was by myself, she was by her. And that was therapeutic for us. What we did not do was be like my grandparents, who had 2 chairs in the living room facing the TV. And we didn't want that kind of life. And that was kind of cool.
So that's Arthur, is it the Bunkers, Archie and Edith Bunker style? Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, George, I know that I've expressed here before, I'm a little bit weird because I like people, but really I like a person. I like spending time across the dinner table from a person or two. I'm perfectly comfortable standing on a stage in front of hundreds of people, but put me in a room with 30 people, and at the most you're going to get small talk. I am not satisfied. I end up finding one interesting person and hone in on them.
Yeah,
and that's not the way it's supposed to be done, but that's just my comfort zone. I'd rather really get to know somebody than a bunch of people very casually. So, George, we're pretty close in age, if I recall
I am
correctly.
59. I'm 59. Okay. I'm going to be 60 this fall. Yep.
All right, I'll be 57 this year. So we are very close.
Yeah, we watched the same things growing up. Yep.
Yeah. Did you spend any time under a desk in elementary school? Did you duck and cover?
God, yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. And in the basement doing the drill, hands over the back of your head.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to elementary school in the Washington D.C. area, and that was.
So you know the Cold War then? Yeah.
Yes, we did. Fully expected it to drop.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the imagery. There was always somebody with their finger ready to press the button, and that was the reality. You lived with that.
Yeah. In a way, there's almost some freedom in that, though, right? Because I think about talking about in sales, because I do training with sales reps, and I hear people talk about, gosh, I just wish we had a lower price on everything. Well, that's a legitimate business model. Our employer could say we're going to have the lowest prices in the market, but then guess what we wouldn't need? we wouldn't need any of us, right? Any of us sales folks. So I actually like having even the most expensive price. There's freedom in that, knowing that not only is the next guy going to be cheaper, all of them are going to be cheaper. So let's just get that out of the way.
Right.
And why don't you tell me about you? And I think a little bit about that fear of this could be over any day. It is freeing, right? Not that you live for today, for tomorrow we die, but you kind of stop worrying about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but that's the way I grew up.
Well, there is a woman who's I'm very close to, who lives in Poland. You might have seen her. I've had her on some of the videos that I've done. She grew up under communism, and everything was sparse, and the strange architecture in Poland. I spent significant time in Poland last year. There was nothing. There was nothing Michelangelo about it. He did everything. He was commissioned to make beautiful things unto the glory of God. That doesn't exist in communism. It's box, 18 rooms. We will call them apartments. Very plain windows. Architecture is stark. She grew up in that. And when Poland became free, and her parents, of course, are still shell-shocked, and her grandparents were shell-shocked. And they still remember, like, if you ever go to fireworks, and there's always those big booms at the very end, and you feel it in your chest.
Yeah.
Her parents still remember the bombing of, these older Polish people still remember the bombing of Warsaw and all these cities, and they feel the percussion in their chest.
Yeah.
And even though they're much older, and this happened when they were children, they almost carry it genetically.
Yeah.
And there's a sparseness. My grandparents, I remember my grandfather. I remember cutting fat off of steak, piece of meat, and he goes, "You're not going to waste that, are you? That's the best part." I'm like, "What?" Like, and that whole clean your plate thing, like, don't leave one pea, one little scrap of food on your plate. You don't give it to the animals.
Hiding money in all the drawers and under the mattress.
Yes. And that creates a different kind of person.
Yeah.
And it stays with you till the day you die.
Yep. My mother is a little bit of a hoarder, and me and my siblings all have that. And I was curious where that came from. Well, it came from my mom's mom, and she was the second to the youngest in her family, pretty large number of siblings. And in the Depression, my great-grandparents gave their kids up for adoption. They couldn't afford them. Yeah. And the oldest sibling had just gotten married when that happened. And she and her new husband went to wherever they handled this and adopted their two youngest siblings. So my grandmother and her little sister were raised by her oldest sister. So to her, family was very precious. Yes. And every scrap was important. Every piece of fabric, every piece of paper, every piece of string had value to it. And so my mom was raised in that way, and so were we. So it's interesting, having never wanted for anything in my life, I hold very tightly to possessions. And Seth knows I'll get excited about something. I'll buy a pipe at a pipe show that I've been looking for forever. And then he'll say, "Hey, have you smoked that yet?" No, I haven't smoked it. Well, why? What are you going to do with it? Possess it.
Wow.
Which is weird, I know. I thought while I have you here, I'd go ahead and take advantage of your therapy.
Yeah. Well, I remember my grandfather, if he threw something away, believe me, whatever ended up on the curb was relieved of nuts, bolts, screws, washers. Like if there was a TV that was thrown away, if there was any usable part in that,
Sure.
it was put in a box. If there was a piece of furniture that could no longer be used, it was destroyed. Screws, nuts, bolts, washers, dowels.
Motors.
Motors.
Kind of like a washer or dryer.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is this, if you ever cleaned out a grandparent's garage after they died, you saw coffee cans filled with nails. And it wasn't like, and I got this, I think, from my father, who got it from my grandfather. There were people who had just like a barrel with every possible piece of fastener in it. And when they needed something, they empty it out on the workshop bench.
Mm-hmm.
Not my father. He had 1/4-inch hole washers, 1/2-inch hole in baby food jars and coffee cans and whatever and coffee cans of every size nail. It wasn't just a nail. It wasn't just a can with nails in it. That coffee can had a certain type of nail in it. And there were shelves with every kind of fastener, every little connecting wire thing, anything that, like, I never remember having to go to a hardware store for anything because my grandfather always had something and my father always had everything.
Right.
It was like, hold on, I'll be right back. And he'd go downstairs in the basement or go out in the garage and he'd come back with it. Hold on 1 second. And he always had it.
You look at those old Popular Science, Popular Mechanics magazines, and they'll show you how to build something from the transmission off of an old Ford.
Yes.
And one of the steps was like, okay, now melt some tin and pour a new bearing. Okay. Yes. Those things, how many of us have ever poured a Babbitt bearing? Right? But that was just common. It's what you did.
Absolutely.
Now, there's somebody on YouTube that's doing it. If we wanted to do it, we could go and learn how to do it.
Right.
It's the encyclopedia of our age.
It really is.
I love tools, and I know you love tools as well. And I have a lot of my grandfather's tools. And for many years, I was collecting planes. And there was something about planes that I loved more than any other tool. I don't know why. I loved planes.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. My family was in the woodworking business for many, many generations. In fact, the last name Markwood is an Americanized name. We're not sure from what, and there's a couple guesses as to what it was originally, but because it reflected the woodworking that our family did for generations. And my family, the business ended up getting lost. It was sold at auction, and we didn't know that it happened. I won't go into that here in case family members are watching. But because of that, I don't have any of the hand planes or tools that my grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather worked with. So to me, every time I see an old plane, it literally could be their old plane. And so I just have a reverence for old tools. Interesting thing about quality tools like that is you can buy one and use it and maintain it, and at the end of your life, it'll be worth as much, if not more, than what you paid for it today.
Yes.
Which is certainly not the case with our current throwaway society. My first iPad isn't even worth being a paperweight anymore.
What is the most unique tool that you currently own? Just unique.
Bought a Craftsman 1947 Craftsman table saw that has a blade that travels forward and backwards like a radial arm saw.
Wow.
So if you need to cut.
So the wood gets clamped down and is stationary?
Yeah, it was designed for building homes, and you would set it down on your slab, and start building. And it is exactly the width of the front door of a house. So you can carry it out of the house when you're done. But imagine cutting 2x4s and you need to trim the end on a 20-foot long 2x4. You don't want to push that through a saw. So yes, you hold the stock down and you pull the blade forward for those cuts. Yeah, it's kind of a unique tool.
That's very unique.
And Seth, don't ask me what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking.
I don't. Not sure. Can you use it?
It hasn't been restored. Right now, I'm currently possessing it.
I can't remember. Did he mention he's a hoarder? Comes from a long line of hoarders.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Your mother inoculated you. That's the good news.
Yes.
That's what it is. Oh, that's fun. You know, it's so funny because I came from the kind of family where my father, like on a Saturday morning, if I was getting ready to go out and play or ride bikes or something, where are you going? I'm going out riding my bike. And he says, no, you're not. Not until we change the brakes. I'm like, Dad, stop it. And I'd be right by his side. And as he was removing lug nuts, he'd hand me the lug nut. As he's removing pieces, I mean, I was rebuilding brakes. I was forced to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, whenever he had a project around the house, I was his, I need a wrench. I need this. I need that. And I'd hand it to him. And I learned how to be handy growing up, just observing my father to the point where in metal shop, and I still have them, I made a hammer, a ball peen hammer. I made my toolbox that I still use to this day, and I made a punch, a metal punch. And my boys, I don't even know if they have a toolbox. By the time I was 17, I had a toolbox, a full toolbox. It's weird.
I have a tool tray that Seth made in shop class in, I don't know, 6th grade maybe, that sits on our dining room table and holds napkins and condiments and things like that. It's really cool. Small. It's not the sort of thing that you'd really use, but we use it. The workbench that we built for him when he was 5 years old, Seth?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like 5, is our TV stand in the living room.
Wow.
So.
And in middle school, we had a good shop program where I went. One of the tools, we got a chance to use CNC and do some metal work and made a screwdriver. It's super cool.
Yeah,
I did that too, and it didn't take a CNC.
Well, we had one, so we used it.
Yeah.
Where will this stuff go? I think about if I passed away, if I died in my sleep tonight, I've said this for years, have a loose, and this probably is for you, Scott, with the hoarding the tendencies to hoard, which I've got some, I haven't hoarded in a long time, but the stuff that I do have, man, I got a pretty tight grip on it. I'll tell you that. And I talk about having a loose grip on things, but if I died tonight, there would be people who would go through my stuff and say, what is this? And then just toss it in a dumpster.
Yeah.
And it belonged to a great grandfather or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't wait. When my grandfather passed away, my grandfather had a great shop. He had a 2-car garage and a wood shop in the garage. After he passed away, I mean, I know my grandmother, everything would end up on the curb. Everything. Just had no use for it. And I went in there and I filled up a trailer. I was pulling a trailer at that time. And I filled up a trailer with all his coffee cans with nuts and bolts and nails and stuff. I have a horsehair bench brush. Remember bench brushes?
Yeah.
A horsehair bench brush, that's the hair is now at an angle because the end of it is worn off.
Yeah.
I've got a 1-inch bearing, and I remember getting that, and my father used to play with that bearing when he was a kid. And I said, "What is this for?" He says, Grandpa built the house that we lived in and that I was born in. He says that bearing was used to make sure the floors were level.
Mm-hmm.
If it rolled, he would put a shim in and so that bearing, many generations old, was used to tell if a floor was level.
Yeah.
Who does that anymore?
Nobody. We have lasers to do that now.
Right.
I said to Jandy, my wife, she was complaining one day about my stuff. And I rent a shop. I have where we record normally is in the back room of a shop I rent. It's an old.
I remember your
shop.
Story. Yep.
And it does have a lot of tools in there, a lot of tools. And Jandy was saying one day, she goes, I dread the thought of you dying before me because I don't want to have to deal with all your crap. And I said, look at it this way, hon. When I'm dead and gone, imagine the men that you will meet at the sale when you're selling all my stuff. And she looked at me straight in the eye, straight face, and she said, I'm not attracted to men that want that kind of crap.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that is great. That is great. I love that. That's a great story.
He's a straight shooter. So we've been married since 1981. I was 18 when we got married. She was 20, and we started dating when I was 15 because the gal that I had been dating went off to college. And so, as a young guy, I was interested in getting to know women and having relationships. And I remember advice that I got from my dad was, probably the best advice, son, you want to date women that have cars. Really good advice. Mm-hmm. And Jandy had a 72 Nova. It was really nice. And so been married quite a while. Seth's courtship was quite a bit different than mine, but I gave him also advice. What was the advice I gave you, Seth?
I don't remember. Was it about cars?
That was thrown in there.
You're gonna remember. Like you're I'm sure fishing for something different. But for me, growing up, my parents always encouraged me to make a best friend and then marry her. And so that was my approach. And so I was not interested in casual dating, but was interested in a relationship as well, and just made as many friends as I could.
Yeah, lots of friends.
I like that.
Well, and the idea of dating in groups was a lot of fun. It's safe, but it's also great because you get to know a lot of people. And in fact, a gal that Seth wanted to date, his cousin got to her first and asked her out. So he wound up on a double date with a gal who was not the gal he wanted to ask. What's interesting is that's the gal that he wound up marrying, the one that he was on the date with many years later. So, and I think he got the better of the two as well. He lucked out.
That's great.
So, anyway, it's for us, marriage has been good. I've enjoyed your channel, though, and the advice you give, and the questions video that you put out the other day, I thought was fantastic. And those were the kinds of things that I wanted to get to know about a potential bride for me. I wanted to know what did she envision for that time. And the other thing is we've always encouraged each other to have separate hobbies and interests, because those are the things that when we get back together, are interesting about each other. We don't have everything in common.
That's right. And, I find that a lot of people are not getting that kind of data anymore. So I kind of take the father that they never had concept, and I'm educating a lot of young guys and a lot of young women as if they are my own children. And my own kids who, through divorce, I didn't see them the way that a normal father sees his kids. So if I die tonight, my boys will get everything that I would have taught them if we were all under the same roof.
Yeah.
And, I always say digital is forever. Long after I'm gone, a lot of this stuff is going to carry on. And I was talking the other day with somebody about this. There's a preacher. I never knew who he was out in California. This guy, Dr. Gene Scott, and he was a pastor of a church. And it was on like at 11 o'clock on Sunday nights on cable channels and this kind of stuff. And he died. I think he died at 75 years old. Maybe in like 2006, possibly. I'm not sure. I think it was 2006. He died, and his wife actually continued his ministry. I'm not a huge fan of female pastors at all. That's just me. I'm not being sexist or anything like that. I just not my preference, and I don't think it's right. That's just me. But she's carrying on his ministry, and from a legacy point of view, I'd like it. From a female pastor point of view, I'm not crazy about it. But the fact that he was pretty prolific. Someone said to me once, "You remind me of Pastor Gene Scott." And I'm like, who the heck is Gene Scott? And one thing led to another. And then I saw that his wife is pastoring this church now since 2006. And she knows 25 languages. She has a PhD. She's a linguist. And, but the fact that his ministry is still going on 15 years after he's gone, and it's very robust. It's not, it's the same kind of forcefulness that he had. And there's a documentary about his life on YouTube called God's Angry Man. And I watched it for the first time last week. Very fascinating. And, but it led me to talk to a lot of people about my legacy and their legacy. What's going to happen after you're gone? And I've said this for the longest time. When my grandfather died, I thought about him every day, every single day. And then it was every other day. And then it was once a week. Now it's like every other week, maybe once a month. So 2 generations after you're gone, nobody remembers you.
Right.
Unless you founded a library and, or some foundation or something like that. But the average person, within 2 generations, you're gone. Yeah. Your grandkids might remember you. Your great-grandkids definitely won't remember you. So how do you keep your work going? Not for ego's sake, but if you're truly doing something significant, how does it continue after you are gone? And I've wrestled with that. It's preoccupied my mind for the past year. When I read all the time, people my age dropping dead. I mean, after 50, Just any freaky thing can happen. You know what I mean? Your heart stops beating and that's it. I mean, just no rhyme or reason. You can go to the gym every day and your heart stops. It doesn't. I've just seen that happen a million times.
Yep.
So I've thought about this. My God, what's going to last? What of mine is going to last? What of mine that has value is going to last after I'm gone? Have you thought about that, Scott and Seth?
Yeah, a little bit. It's interesting that you mentioned Keith Green the other day.
Yeah.
Mm.
And first off, you punched me in the gut when you mentioned how long he'd been gone.
I know it.
Right?
Isn't that crazy?
It's just absolutely shocking. But you know,
48 years.
His wife continued his ministry. Right? That was
yes.
You know, she's still out there doing her thing and really continuing his thing in some way. But for sure, every Easter season, Keith Green music comes out.
Always.
And you know, Seth grew up on us playing Keith Green's music, and you know that to me is a lasting legacy. But yeah, I do think about that. Having 7 grandkids now.
Yeah.
Jandy's dad died when he was 52. Never got to meet any of his grandkids. And I feel super blessed getting to know my grandkids.
Yes.
And in some way, I think getting to know them and them knowing that I'm interested in getting to know them is a greater gift than them getting to know me.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know.
That's cool.
These recordings, I can't imagine the grandkids growing up and sitting around watching old episodes of Markwood Men's Breakfast Club, but who knows? But, you know, when John Matches 860 died a couple months back, one of the thoughts I had immediately was, I sure hope that his family doesn't take down his channel, and was pleased to hear that from his wife that no, she has no intention of doing that. John will be gaining new subscribers and new fans for years to come.
Yes.
And his influence has obviously already outlived him. But yeah, I think about that. I'm not sure what legacy I'm leaving. I hope more than anything else that my grandkids look back and say, whatever it was that Grandpa had, I want some of that, right? And I'm hoping that the influence of me as a faithful man, a follower of Christ, and a family man, that continues. And I love the fact that my kids married believers, and that they have carried on with their children in the lessons that we've taught them as well, and more importantly, that they live that life. I don't know. That's a really good question. I do think about it. I'm not obsessed about it yet, but I'm thankful that both of my parents are still living, still happily married, and at 85 and 81. You know, that's pretty amazing. I'm not. I have some fear about what's going on with the coronavirus, you know, and they've got a bunch of people around them that they're involved with. They're very social people out in Denver.
Yes.
And for them to be locked away, my mother's gift is she's a hostess. She hosts lots and lots and lots of parties. The Bible study meets at the house, and they, you know, the grandkids that are there in Denver, local, spend a lot of time hanging out with them. And the best thing that they could do to show their love is to stay away for a while.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Let's ask Seth. Do you think about that? Boy, do you think about a legacy?
A little. I mean, I do think to a degree I view our videos as a little bit of that, you know, thinking about the people that I don't have in my life and I don't have any sort of video or audio or any real connection with. My grandfather passed away before I was born. So, man, it would be cool to have just one video sitting around you and he smoking a pipe.
Yeah.
And thinking about how many 4, 5, 6 videos we've filmed with Grandpa and get some of his war stories on film, and those things won't go away. And also, if something were to happen to me, that this is available for my kids. But I think this is great, and it is a legacy, and like you said, new people find it all the time. But even more than that, I hope that the legacy is lives touched. For me, I hope it's impact of relationships that I've built, of beyond just my family, but those at church and in the community and at work. And George, I think millions of people watching your videos, and that ministry of yours is impacting lives. Being the stand-in father that's a huge legacy that you're leaving, and will ripple. We look. I think this is totally sacrilegious, but to a degree, there's the gospel story and there's the disciple element here, right? And so there's the story of Christ's life, which in some ways is the videos and the archives of what is left behind, and then there's the disciples, the people that come behind and say, hey, here's a good word, here's a good life lesson, a good whatever it is that I learned from these other people, and this is how it's impacted my life. I think we get to have a little bit of both and.
Yeah, I like that.
So, George, I do have a question I'd love to ask or get your answer to.
Sure.
And this really happened to a cousin of my wife. Actually, it's her husband. His grandfather approached him one day when he was a young man and said, I want to loan you $1 million for 1 year on the condition that you take that money and start a business. And at the end of the year, I want whatever I want the $1 million back or whatever's left of it. You can't stick it under a mattress. You can't stick it in a bank account. You got to start a business.
Yeah.
If somebody gave you that offer, what would you do?
It's funny. People talk about our current president. Oh yeah, his father gave him $1 million. They go, that's easy. Yeah, he turned that million into 100 billion. To me, that's the parable of the talents. I want to turn that into much more, something that's actually that's bearing fruit long after the million is gone, long after I hand it back.
Yeah,
that's what I would do. I wouldn't spend it. I don't need anything. Not unlike my parents and your parents right now. Like, what do they need money for? What do you need money for? I mean, honestly, my goal now is to live in a shack. I mean, I'm happy with a Toyota Tacoma with no plans of getting rid. I'll keep fixing it till it can no longer be fixed and there's no parts for it. So I don't need anything. When I was married, I only bought underwear when my wife would say, you need new underwear.
Yeah.
I don't need anything. So for me, there's no need to spend that on anything. I would create a mechanism where people, my own people at first, because charity begins at home, I believe, where my family would be taken care of, not spoiled, and not trust fund kid-ish type of stuff, but something that helps them get a little bit of a start. I like the idea of business incubators.
Yeah.
to me, that will make billions of dollars over a lifetime or many lifetimes.
Yeah.
You know, you could, I'm a huge fan of, you know, teaching a man how to fish versus giving him a fish. So if I could take that $1 million and use it to teach people how to be self-sufficient, how to start their lives over, that's what I would do.
Well, and you're right. I think we were made for work, right? I mean, we weren't made for trust funds.
Right. And we weren't made for retirement either.
Yeah, that's so true.
I mean, I will work until I can no longer work. I will work. This body will work until this body can no longer work. And then this mind will work. I mean, when you think about the intellectual capital of the average senior, I mean, on my street, I'm just thinking about my neighbors. This guy over here on this side here, he's a retired attorney. Brilliant man, but not doing anything with it anymore. On this side here, a school teacher, brilliant guy, happily retired, but I just see him kind of wasting away. And I think when this body can't work, this mind can still work. I'll be making money and creating resources with the mind when the biceps no longer work. My father, 85 years old, cuts hair every day still. I can't even imagine him retiring. Can't imagine it.
Mm-hmm.
He will die probably with scissors or clippers in his hand, most likely.
Yeah.
He can't imagine himself retiring. He doesn't need the money.
Yeah.
But he needs to be productive.
Yeah.
And I think every man is like that. The whole idea of, I'm going to retire when I'm 62. Okay. I can see retiring from the 40-hour humping and pumping and, you know, I can see leaving that and being a little more casual about it. But I think the key is to be productive your entire life. We were not meant to be non-productive.
Yeah.
And there's a time when you get the gray hair that you've earned the right to become an elder and to be known for your intellectual capital and not just what your biceps or fists can do.
Yeah. Yep. Very good point.
Well, I've got a couple of questions. I know you've got some. I don't know what the time frame is, but also we've had a number of comments that may want to respond to at some point.
Yeah. Well, jump in. Share.
Well, yeah. So personally, George, you know, I appreciate one thing I appreciate about your channel, and it's something we try to do here, is that you talk about what's interesting, and so it has meant that for me, and I'm sure many of your viewers, I just kind of randomly stumble upon a video here and there of a topic that just, you know, the YouTube algorithms decides that I'll like, and it's usually spot on. So one of them, you within the last year, I think, inspired quite an unfortunate fountain pen habit for me.
Yes.
So, you know, I was harassing somebody earlier about being a hoarder, and it's taken hold a little bit.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You still writing with a fountain pen?
I sure am.
I loved what you said in that video. I was inspired by you said that you thought it would be good and would be helpful to slow down. That it would help you slow down and be more intentional with your writing, and I loved that. And so I wound up with a few Pilot Metropolitans and some
nice
Chinese, I don't even know what they are, Jinhaos and a couple.
Yeah. Those are everybody's first pens. The Pilot Metropolitan, great beginner pen. The Jinhao, fantastic. I mean, it's a great entry. Where I'm currently working, I found some old ledgers, as in leather bound, just classic, maybe 20 inches high, maybe 10 inches wide, leather bound, and they're 100 years old. And when I was talking to one of the old fountain pen guys, I think I even did a video with him, he goes to thrift stores and buys old ledgers, even if they're 3/4 of the way filled with writing that means nothing to him. It still has 25 pages of 100-year-old paper in it.
Mm.
Right.
And the fountain pens respond well to paper that has a high fiber content in it. So I started getting into paper, and that's a whole different rabbit hole
it's a
as well.
Subcategory, yeah.
And I have 100-year-old ruled paper.
Wow.
That's cool.
It's fascinating.
Well, as I started going down that rabbit hole a little bit, I wound up getting a fountain pen, something from AliExpress from China for my son, who's 7, and have discovered just quite by accident that I don't know if it's the fanciness of it or the smoothness of it, but he really enjoys writing in cursive with his fountain pen, and in fact it kind of revolutionized his handwriting and the amount that he cares to write by hand. I'm still garbage writing by hand, just absolutely terrible. But yeah, it's been great.
That's neat.
And the thing is these pen shows that we go to, I love pen shows. I mean, I would imagine, I've never been to a pipe show, but I would imagine a pen show is like a pipe show. There's all kinds of personalities there, and there's no right or wrong personality. They're all very unique, and it's kind of a strange indulgence going to a pen show and spending time and not just looking at the pens, because after you go from one vendor to the other, what is going to a pen show without experiencing the people, which of course I did a documentary on that called People at the Pen, and that has opened up a whole new world for me. And even if I go to a pen show and never buy anything, I get great joy from just interacting with all these people. It's incredible.
Is there a Missouri meerschaum of fountain pens? Is there a fountain pen that everybody has?
The Pilot Metropolitan.
Is that
it?
Or the
I think
Lamy Safari.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Metropolitan is the kind of like your entrance ticket to that world.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are people who love the reservoirs. There's people who love the nibs. There's people who are into the ink. There's people who are into the paper. It is a rabbit hole like you can never imagine. And if you've watched any of those documentaries, there's a guy that just goes to every show, and I just can't get enough of him, this fella named Ralph Reyes. And he's the guy that said a fountain pen is a tool for his soul.
Mm.
And I'll never forget him saying that, of how powerful that was, and how he had a very dark childhood and had many reasons to end his life.
Mm.
And he said a fountain pen literally helped him empty out his heart, and he wrote about things with a fountain pen that he could never write with just a regular pen. It literally changed his life, and he speaks with such passion about it, where, again, here I am fanning myself. I'm trying to be the serious filmmaker, and it's hard to actually be a filmmaker when you can't see the camera because the tears are flowing in your own eyes. And literally, I thought when I did the show called the documentary called The Collectors, I purposely put him at the very end of the documentary because I felt that was the money shot. I felt like he shared a point where he was going to lose his soul. He was going to go crazy. His world got very dark, but the fountain pen world pulled him out of that.
Wow.
There's a guy, Nicholas Pang. His Instagram is called Entropy Inc. He's a calligraphy expert. Some of his fonts are now used by Microsoft.
Wow.
He was a world-class cellist who had an accident where his arm was crushed, bones were crushed. And part of his physical therapy was being able to write again. And one of the things that he did was he took up calligraphy, the good old-fashioned dip pen. Dip it in the ink, and you write with it. Through that, he got all his range of motion back again. But here's the thing. He didn't go back to being a cellist. He is now a professional calligrapher.
Neat.
I mean, it's goosebump material when you hear him talk. You just sit there and you get goosebumps. And as he was talking to me, he was writing my name with a dip pen. And when he finally pushed that piece of paper over and turned it around, I was blown away. I couldn't believe that was hand written, what he had written. So for me, the whole fountain pen thing was transformative for me. And I passed that on unintentionally. Well, Zig Ziglar used to talk about sales is nothing but a transfer of enthusiasm, if you remember him saying that. And what has happened was there are people that are more into fountain pens than I am because of me.
Started with that, yeah.
It's weird.
So, any other questions in the chat there, Seth?
I actually had one other too. Another kind of video I just stumbled upon randomly one day. You were talking about your experience with the carnivore diet.
Yes.
Is that something that is still ongoing?
Yeah. No. I am what I call mostly meat, and that was like my entrance into keto and all of that kind of stuff. But that opened up a weird world for me a whole different world, in the sense that I started caring more about the quality of meat that I eat, how I cook, not cooking it to death, cooking it so there's still some life left into it. I've enjoyed eating some raw beef on a regular basis. It gives me what I call wolf energy. There's something about it. Very thin slices of beef.
Yeah.
And it's magnificent. But it taught me this, that I was addicted to carbs. And when you're addicted to carbs, that means you're addicted to sugar. We just got to tell the truth about that. Carbs is sugar. That's what it is. And I'm a big practitioner of fasting, not only for spiritual reasons, but for health reasons. And eating meat has taught me to eat to live and not live to eat. And prior to carnivore, I was living to eat.
Yeah.
I couldn't. What carnivore did, it led me to fasting. So the combination of carnivore and fasting and intermittent fasting led me to eat to live, realize that I don't need anything. It helped me beat my sugar and carb addiction, helped me beat my coffee addiction. And I could eat meat and drink water and be happy, and lose the weight just flies off of me. Mm-hmm. It does level out. It does level out. A lot of people think you're going to lose weight at that velocity forever. Like the more you do it, the more there is a factor, the law of diminishing returns. You don't keep getting the same results if you keep doing it. You have to stop, reboot. And it's been wonderful. I mean, I've gone as far as a month of eating only meat. And of course, I've learned after about 3 weeks of eating meat, I got so bored, and I'm like, my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I started. You get variety in the way that you cook it, the different types of meat. I went and made friends with a guy from Ghana, West Africa, who is now an actual friend. He's a real friend, and he cooks oxtail and curried goat and a lot of these African things that I now love, and introduced me to variety, because you could buy 30 steaks, put 30 steaks in your freezer, have one steak a day, one like good hearty ribeye. By the seventh or eighth day, I remember working in a deli as a kid. And when you're a kid, you think like, pizzas and submarine sandwiches. And, after about a month, I never wanted to smell a pizza. I don't want to have another hoagie or a sub. And that's what happened with me with meat. I was like, holy crap, I couldn't eat another steak now. I mean, this is literally after like a week. I'm like, I don't want another steak. So I had to think of other meats to eat and other ways how to prepare it. And then I got into drying meat, and I got myself a dehydrator. And that has been a lifesaver, because I've dried every kind of meat. I've made my own jerky. I've made my own, I've ground my own meat and made my own like Slim Jim type of meats. I got into African biltong, which I love. Absolutely, that's my favorite. I love it much more than jerky. And it introduced me to a whole community of people who tried dieting their whole life and said, my God, carnivore changed my life. And as many people who saw me grow a beard, I became their beard guru. People who watched me smoke a pipe, I became their pipe guru. People who were introduced to carnivore through me. I still get letters to this day from people who started carnivore because of me, men and women, and their life has changed, and the before and after pictures are amazing. And I don't even do it anymore like I did. So it's it helps you. Like I let me put it this way. What made it easier for me was that I'm a single man. When you are a vegan or a carnivore or like whatever label, and you have a family, you are always going to be the party pooper.
Yeah.
Your family wants to eat normal, but you just want to have a steak. Your family, wants to celebrate the holidays like a normal family, but you're like eating beef jerky, so you just end up becoming the party pooper for everybody. and as a social person, I always remember going to a party and there was the person who said, oh, I can't eat that. Oh, I won't eat that. I can't. And I'm like, I do not want to be that person.
Yeah.
That is not who I am.
Or the person that everyone chooses the restaurant based off of what you can and can't eat.
I I hate people
we can't go there because
right.
So,
So
what
yeah,
drew me to that video and why it popped up? I've done keto and intermittent fasting for the last 2 years, and
yes,
so in that time have lost 140 pounds.
that's amazing,
And
amazing.
yeah, and I, like you, have found that keto and intermittent fasting go hand in hand really, really, really well.
Yes, yes, they do.
Not hungry and anything else. But over the last year, I've done a lot of traveling for work. Have had a lot more times where it just was not feasible, and then times where I was, traveling exotic locations and just didn't want to
Yeah,
eat keto, and so have had a lot more ups and downs. And so saw that video and started toying with the idea of going full carnivore. Because keto's been good, but yeah, most of my diet is steak, bacon, sausages, and
yeah, yeah,
was curious to hear on that video and now that feedback. So your experience with it.
yeah. It's been fun. Everything I do is fun. I mean, I try to have a lot of fun with everything that I do. I mean, between the carnivore, uh, I started roasting my own coffee, and that was transformative.
Hmm.
And when I just go back to just like regular coffee, I can't do it. I can't do
Yeah.
it. I have to roast my own coffee now. I mean, you get to a certain level. Like, for instance, like one guy said to me when I was doing carnivore, he says, "Have you ever tried using a blowtorch on your steak?" I'm like, "What?" And he said, "I want to buy you a blowtorch." I said, like the guys who like want to make a pipe for me or something. And I said, "Oh, okay, whatever." And he said, and he showed me how to do it. And son of a gun,
Yeah.
you cook your steak about 70% done, like it's rare, and then you sear the heck out of it with a blowtorch, and you finish it with a blowtorch, and it is incredible. Nothing
Beth and I
goes to
both do
waste.
that. Yeah.
Oh,
So have you
wow.
ever cooked sous vide?
I've never gotten into that, although I have many clients who talk about it every time they come in. Yeah.
It's a wonderful rabbit hole. It's pretty shallow rabbit hole, but you're cooking your steak in water.
Yes.
That's the perfect temperature.
Yes.
And the only thing
Yes.
left to do is to sear it, and the blowtorch.
Yes.
You hit it with the
Yes.
blowtorch on both sides.
Yeah.
And you get crisp top and bottom, and then just perfect rare, medium rare, however you want it, from edge to edge.
That's
no
music to my
graying.
ears.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah.
I love what the torch does to the fat too.
Oh,
It just
makes it curl up, and
it's just, and the smell is magnificent. I mean, I don't know if I'm not an evolutionist, and I'm not one of those guys that always talks about, well, early man did it's like, all right, enough already with the early man stuff. But there is something about meat and fire. I mean, let's get real.
Oh yeah.
Very primal for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's part of the pipe smoking thing too. There's something about learning to tend the flame, right? Learning how to keep that pipe going that ties back to keeping the fire lit
100%.
outside the cave.
Having fire close to your face, what's not to love?
Yeah.
All right, George, we've got some questions here, so we'll do a lightning round. If that's all right.
Sure.
Austin asked,
Sure.
do you enjoy vinyl music or digital?
I have both. When I was going through my albums recently, and I was literally pulling the record out and just looking at all my vinyl albums, the most worn out song that I own is, and the most worn out album is Yes, the group Yes, and the song Roundabout is the smoothest.
I love that song.
I mean, literally, that. I mean, when you want to, like, there was a day when you would go and buy a stereo, and they had records, and you try out the different speakers in a sound, like a listening room. And I always brought Yes with me because the fidelity of the song Roundabout, it tests speakers better than any song I've ever known.
Yeah, it's great.
So yeah. Both.
That
I
is
like
one of the
both,
few
but
songs. That's one of the few songs I actually have downloaded on my phone. You know, I do a lot of streaming of music, but actually
Yes.
on the memory of my phone, I have Roundabout.
I love it. I love it.
All right, so Scott, aka SWB75, said to ask you about lawnmower and whippersnappers going off when you're doing a YouTube video.
You know, it's so funny. I started. Sometimes I think that I don't know if God plays tricks on us, but I think that many times if you say things, you will bring it to pass. And I don't want to get too like woo woo about it, but there was a time where every time I'd be out here on my back deck starting a video, and next thing you know, somebody would start a lawnmower, a chainsaw, leaf blower, and I would literally say, it figures every time I press record, somebody starts a power tool.
Yes.
And I had to actually stop saying that. I really felt by saying that I was making there was a causality happening. And I know there's like some weird spiritual thing going on. I mean, I haven't figured it out yet, but it hasn't happened since I stopped commenting that it always happens.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Speaking of kind of YouTube, how do you have a philosophy or a strategic approach to your videos and your channel? Is it just off the cuff? How much thought do you put into it?
I wake up between 4 and 4:30 every day for the Daybreak show. I press record at 5 a.m. And probably the most consistent thing about the show is that I'm consistent with it, period. Is that it gets done. And it was done by default, not by design, because I get my best work done early in the morning before the noise of life starts. No phone calls, no emails, no nothing. So literally I wake up and you're getting my mind literally 15, 20, 25 minutes after I wake up. The first sip of coffee is literally my first sip of coffee. That's not a coffee prop. It is my first sip of coffee. But I found that if I'm consistent and I practice that, they say it takes 3 weeks to create a habit, 21 days. On day 22, if you don't do that thing, it'll seem strange to not do it. It would seem strange for me to not do my Daybreak show. The hardest thing for me to, like, when Friday comes or Saturday comes, my attitude is not, I don't have to make a video today. My attitude is, what can I do? What can I make a video about today? Because I'm so used to doing it that even no matter where I go, I will make a video. If I'm taking a ride somewhere, it doesn't matter. I've invited people to be on my show, people that I work with. They have no idea what they're getting themselves into. And I've had people, girls that I work with at the salon, come on the show. They have no idea what they're getting themselves into. They have no idea of the scope of people that are going to be watching them. My lady friend in Poland, she found me through YouTube. That's how I know her, through YouTube.
Hmm.
She was a fan of mine. She liked philosophical stuff. She liked men talking about masculinity and being a man. And, you know, I said, do you realize you had to travel 5,000 miles to find me? I mean, you know, you mean there's no men in your town in Poland? So, but the I think if you're, remember years ago, I forget who it was the Christian book many years ago, many years ago, where the first chapter they talked about garbage in, garbage out. Remember that? Anyone remember that? It was back in the 70s. Somebody wrote a book.
I don't
and
remember
it was a
much
spiritual.
from the 70s.
Yeah. Okay. Scott, I'm sure you have. If you remember Keith Green, you remember this. Some guy started talking about garbage in, garbage out, and it was back when computers were very simple. And he talked about the Christian life being garbage in, garbage out, and whatever you put into your brain is going to come out. So for me, between that and my sales training, I remember years ago, Brian Tracy talked about loading the pipeline. You put stuff in one end eventually, and you load it up enough, it's going to come out the other. So being a voracious reader and a consumer of content, but not a TV watcher, an observer of life, data in, data out. And that has made my YouTubing so much easier and effortless because I always have something to talk about, because I'm always taking data in at all times.
Sure. And Brian Tracy has a YouTube channel. Still watching Brian Tracy.
The man's amazing.
Yes, he is.
There's a church in North Carolina whose one of their core values is eat the fish, leave the bones. And their philosophy is we can learn something from anybody, but that doesn't mean we have to take everything that they say. To take the good and not everything else. George Mantalk wants to know: do you smoke aromatics?
I do. And, you know, not unlike a lot of people, the first time I tried an English blend or a Virginia blend, I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. And I think the entrance ticket to the piping world is like Captain Black or something, a cherry blend or something like that. And then you discover Latakia, you hate it, and then you order it again. It's like the first time I tried Haunted Bookshop, my head was spinning. I literally, this is the chair that I was sitting in. I went to sit up and I'm like, oh, okay, not right now. And I just went back down in the chair and I thought to myself, how does anyone ever smoke that crap? And then like 3 months later, I'm like, maybe I'll try the Haunted Bookshop again. Same thing happened. That probably happened 3 or 4 times. And then one time I smoked it and I didn't get that nicotine hit.
Yeah.
And I'm not even an inhaler. I don't inhale anything. And I'm like, how can I get a hit if I'm not even inhaling?
Yeah.
And then I remember like ordering a pound of it. But aromatics, if I'm going to Chestnut Hill in Philadelphia, which I love going to, there's a pipe store there called the Pipe Rack. And it's an old-fashioned pipe store. It's been there 100 years. And he's had to diversify. He's off selling cigars and glass pipes and bongs and, you know, all that stuff. But it was literally a pipe shop. That's all it was. Pipe and pipe tobacco. Pipes and pipe tobacco. And there's tons of park benches all around Chestnut Hill. And to me, that's the if you want to do a pipe tobacco survey, Chestnut Hill is the place to go to. Sit on a bench, and as people walk by, they will say, "Ooh, that smells good," or like they'll do the fake cough.
Yeah.
And whenever I go to Chestnut Hill, I always bring a cherry blend. Just always. If I'm sitting down on a bench, just smoking a pipe, and I admit that I do enjoy the response from strangers, and how, and women too. Really, I call it pipe game. How women will stop and say, "Oh, that reminds me of my father or my grandfather," and like,
Yes.
who would ever think
Yes.
that smoking a pipe would be like some guys say, "I want to meet women." I'm like, smoke a pipe with a cherry blend.
Yeah, no Latakia. If you want.
No. There will be no Latakia.
So one of the traditions that we have is we do Tobacco Advent, where every December,
Yes,
our viewers.
I'm a big fan.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
For anyone that's joined from your channel, every December, viewers and people that watch our show send in a sample of their tobacco, their favorite tobacco, and then every day, December 1st through the 25th, we'll smoke a little bit of the tobacco. Usually have a question, and it's like a 5-10 minute video. But because of our travel schedules,
I'm sorry. How long?
5 to 10 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes. Tobacco Advent's normally about 5 to 10 minutes. Because of our travel schedules, we will batch film those, and so we'll do 10 videos sometimes in a sitting. And knowing that my dad doesn't care much for English and strong, English Latakia blends, people love to send that for us. And so, eight blends in 80 minutes of sitting back to back smoking these different strong blends. You go to stand up from the stool and your legs don't work so good. So it's fun.
So we keep dark chocolate handy.
Yeah.
Dark chocolate actually helps to kick that nicotine buzz. Very helpful.
Okay.
And tortilla chips will help cleanse the palate.
That's for the breath. That's for the
breath.
breath.
How interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's one thing I don't do is, it's so interesting because my girlfriend, she says, I was really worried about the pipe smoking thing. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she says, like I wondered if you're going to be smoking a pipe all the time, and are you always going to smell like a pipe? And I don't. And it's just that when people see me online, I happen to be smoking a pipe. But for the uninitiated, they think that's I wake up and fire up a pipe.
Right.
And before I go to bed, I smoke a pipe. And the last thing I want to do is, be married and then crawl into bed with my wife smelling like a bonfire.
Right.
So I will say that as a single man, it's easier. I don't share a bed with anybody. I have a twin bed. I have a single bed, and I crawl into that bed by myself every night. And I'm thinking, God, if I marry again and I end my day with a pipe, I'm going to have to jump in the shower, brush my teeth, and clean my beard, because the beard, of course, catches. Yeah, I like the smell of. I like the smell of. It doesn't bother me at all. I like it.
Right.
And I used to tell the story of smoking a Frog Morton blend, and then going to bed without washing my face and laying on the pillow, and just getting that beard note.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, that smells good. And then I thought to myself, if I was married and there was a woman 14 inches in this direction here, is she going to be thinking, that smells? Because I know if a woman is not smoking a pipe, and I usually don't encourage that, and she's breathing non-pipe tobacco air, laying on a pillow that smells like fresh, line dried pillowcases, and then I crawl into bed smelling. I mean, she'll be smelling me before I even get in the room.
Yeah, no, you're right about that.
I've worried about that, but it's not like I wake up and smoke a pipe every day. And I work in a field where I'm close to people's faces and heads, and I don't want people smelling smoke on my hands or on my breath. But when people see me online, they seem to think that I live with a pipe in my mouth.
Sure.
And I don't. And I only smoke a pipe when I know I'm not going to be with people. If I happen to be with a bunch of guys, I'm usually the only pipe smoking weirdo, amongst the group of guys, unless they take up the hobby themselves. I mean, I spoke at a men's conference. I speak at about 5 or 6 conferences a year. One of them is a Christian conference, and we decided next year, and this is the Builders Summit that I spoke at last year, we decided that we are going to do cigars and pipes next year, but it's at a Christian conference center that doesn't allow smoking on the grounds.
Sure.
So we had to decide, are we going to go off-site to do it or not? That was because there are still churches that believe tobacco is of the devil and whatever, and you're, and like, whatever, I'm way over that. But I spoke at this men's conference, and I got tobaccopipes.com to donate like 150 pipes, pouches of tobacco, lighters, that kind of thing. And I was going to do an kind of a optional breakaway group on how to smoke a pipe. Honestly, I thought I was going to have 5 or 6 guys. I had 60 guys. 60 guys that I taught them how to smoke a pipe.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And to this day, they say that night changed because we're sitting around like a fire pit. And to this day, those guys are doing videos and smoking a pipe. And they said it changed their lives. I had no idea. I just thought I was going to teach a guy how to smoke a pipe. And these guys are now considered pipe smokers. And they're all writers. They're all authors. These guys are like cranking out the books. I mean, I'm seeing pictures of them on Instagram at a typewriter, a computer with a pipe in their mouth. And so and they're writing prolific books. I mean, it's incredible.
Would they consider themselves members of the YTPC?
Never in a million years. Never. I don't even consider myself a member of that. Although I get told that I'm a member of it, and that's neither good nor bad. I'm not placing any value judgment on it. It's just, what's weird is in every community there are dabblers, there are purists, and like the Briar guys, are in that eternal war with the Cobb guys. English guys, English blend guys are always putting down the aromatic lovers, and the guys who light with a Bic lighter are enemies with the Zippo or the hemp wick or the wooden match. Yeah, like that whole right. I mean,
it's just like any church.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Any group that I've belonged to, no matter what group it is, there's like the beard purists that think like you should never trim a beard. And the beard contests have the best groomed beard, the best natural beard. And there were guys that were kicked out of categories because they actually trimmed a beard, but entered themselves into the natural beard category. And natural beard means you don't touch your beard with anything sharp. So every group, like I got like my coffee guys, I got guys schooling me on how I should make my coffee. The cigar guys, do you keep the ring on? Do you take it off? What do you like? I get, and I just said, you know what? You're all jerks. Everyone's a jerk. I don't want to become part of any group, anywhere, anytime, because I'm tired of all the weird little not unlike churches, like you said. It reminds me of the Emo Phillips joke. Do you remember the Emo Phillips joke? Where he talked about
Phillips.
Oh, comedian. I'll have to make a video about it, but it was something like he saw a man ready to jump off a bridge and ready to take his life, and I said to him, you know, God loves you and wants you to live, and the man hanging on the bridge said, "Are you a Christian?" He says, "Yes, I am." And he says, you know, "Are you Lutheran?" And he says, "Yes, I am." "Wow, me too." Lutheran, Missouri Synod, 1864. "Yes, wow, me too." And it kept going further and further. And then at the very end, there was like one like little minute thing that they didn't have in common. And he says, "Die, heretic," and I let him jump off the bridge or something to that effect. It's a very funny joke, but it reminds me of all these communities of purists and dabblers and people writing me like, you know, like I'm the pipe guru and saying, it's like Buddha, I come this far to ask you this question, you know. It's like, it's only a pipe, it's okay, relax. You know, how should I, you know, like, you know, how many jokes have you heard about, like, you know, what is the meaning of life? And people writing me saying, how should I light my pipe? And I'm like, there's extremists flying planes into buildings and people wearing bombs on suicide vests, and you're losing sleep because you don't know how to light a pipe.
Right. There's no shame in relighting.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
We tell people all the time, there are much smarter pipe smokers on YouTube than us. Find them.
Yeah.
You know, we try not to be the experts, but the neighbor that knows a little bit more than you. And there's a YouTube channel I like, the Whiskey Tribe, and they say, you know, the best whiskey is the whiskey you like to drink. I think the same is true for all of these hobbies. Everybody has an opinion about what's best, but that's great. That's the best thing for you, and you should do that. And it's okay if someone disagrees with that. It should be. We're still part of the same tribe.
Yeah.
I got a great story about that. I have a friend who does fundraisers, and she helps NFL players start foundations to raise money for children with cancer and different disability. Like if there's like some like rich NFL player, he doesn't know what to do with his money, he starts a foundation. That's like a thing, I guess.
Right.
So she calls me one night and says, I need you to do something for me. I can't get out. I'm stuck. Can you go pick up Dick Vermeil for me? I said, Dick Vermeil, as in like one of the greatest football coaches of all time. She says, yeah, that Dick Vermeil. I said, oh, okay. No problem. I pull up. He comes out, gets in the car. We go to the party. I'm invited to the party. There's all kinds of VIPs there. And I said, Dick, I'm going to drop you off at the front door. I'm going to go around the block and park the car. And he goes to get out of my car, and the electric lock doesn't open. And he says, oh, can you unlock my door? And I try to unlock it, and it does it. And I'm like, oh, crap. So I try to press the button and make his window go down. You know, didn't work. My my window went down, but my electric power lock wouldn't open. So I go, Dick, I said, the doors are locked. I can't even get the windows down. And I said, I think we're going to have to climb out my window. Now, here's this very distinguished man, has Vermeil wines in Napa Valley and known everywhere he goes. He's a super, very benevolent man, gives millions of dollars to charities. And that was my first meeting with Dick Vermeil. Since then, Dick and I are friends, and we never forget the first time that he got locked in my car. But at that party one night, he always goes to these parties, these fundraisers. He brings his wines with him, and a lot of times they get auctioned off and so forth. And somebody was drinking one of his wines. Now, he is always a guest of honor type. He's the guy that you pay him honor, but not Dick. He's the guy that walks around filling up your wine glass, taking your coat. True servant. Blow your mind. If you did not know it was Dick Vermeil, you would think he's the butler. Just the epitome of servant leadership. So he's pouring a glass of wine for this lady. And he goes, would you like another glass of wine? She goes, sure. He's pouring it. And she says, is this a good wine? He says, do you like it? She says, yeah, I do. And he goes, well, then it's a good wine.
Yep.
And what is a good tobacco? What is a good way to light a pipe? What is a good whiskey? What is a good anything? Mm-hmm. If you like it, it's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Although we do know that cobs are tobacco's favorite pipes.
The fact is they are. I mean, let's get real. I mean, I'm not like a cob snob, but I honestly believe that there's something, I don't know, do we have any physicists in the YTPC that can explain why tobacco just burns so well and perfectly from the first? They don't need breaking in. You can buy a $2 cob in a drugstore and it smokes perfect from the first minute.
Yes.
Why is that?
There is a physicist. I'll see if he can address that. Yes, there is, and you're exactly.
It's amazing.
Boy, any more comments?
Yeah, I think maybe one more. There were a couple of funny comments. Someone said they could lose. They could turn their $1 million into 100,000 real quick. Also, a surprise.
Oh, he's a cabinet maker.
That was Derek Tans. I could easily turn $1 million into 100,000. And
yes, they say that how to make a small fortune in cabinet making is starting with a large fortune.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
A lot of people talking about not wearing pants. Chris Kahn said, I stopped wearing pants a week ago. I don't even need them for Zoom meetings. A lot of pipe smokers not wearing pants tonight. So
going full on Winnie the Pooh, are they?
Yeah. Eric said, if I run out of toilet paper, I'm going to go find that high fiber paper. Might be more gentle than quilted northern.
Yeah, 100-year-old ledger paper.
Yeah.
You know, when you were talking about your friend in Poland, my mind went to, thank goodness we don't live in a country where you have to wait in line at a grocery store to buy things like toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whew.
And then a couple of people have asked, George, did you go to seminary to be a Catholic priest or a Protestant preacher?
Oh, I went to Westminster Seminary to become a Presbyterian. I am a PCA guy. I am reformed in my theology. To me, I like old things, and the older the better. And I kind of like the reformers, but my mother grew up Orthodox. So I remember as a little boy going into churches with these golden altars and big gold domes and priests with big white beards and pope hats on and all that kind of stuff. And I have a love for the Orthodox Church, the Eastern Orthodox or Russian Orthodox, and born and raised Roman Catholic. I went to here's the Batman origin story. I went to a youth retreat when I was 15 years old with an organization, I don't even know if it exists anymore, called Youth for Christ. Yeah. And I went to a retreat in Ocean City called Come Alive 75. And I will never forget, that was like, and I was Catholic. And that was the first time I kind of heard that I can make this a little more personal. And so that's kind of where it started. And it started out of turmoil. A lot of the attraction to that was, ooh, there's stability. There's something that's more stable than my life and my family. And so that's where it started. But for me, I love theology. I love philosophy. I went to a Christian college. I went to a regular state university, but I also went to seminary and studied under guys. You have their books on your shelves. Let me just put it that way. And have always been in awe of men who think, who are thinkers, who make me think. And but I didn't have the life. I had what do they say? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. My spirit was very willing, but my flesh was very weak. I was a young man. I was all boy, so to speak, and never had the discipline to follow through on being disciplined. And my life went down some pretty crazy roads, and which led me to really grasp the depth of Reformed theology. For me, that means that God is hanging on to me a lot tighter than I'm hanging on to him. And whatever I have that I can call Christian has nothing to do with me. So that's where I'm at. So the last time I was in Florida visiting my family, we went to a Orthodox church where everything was chanted. Everything. The whole service was sung and chanted. And I got goosebumps. And I know the average contemporary Christian would get weirded out by that. But let me remind the average contemporary Christian that that's the roots of their faith right there. That's how everyone did it.
Well, it's just chanting with a guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, I'm good friends with a guy who has written Christmas plays, Easter cantatas. He's prolific. His plays and musicals have been in your church. I mean, that's how prolific this guy is. He was minister of music at a very, very large church in Princeton, New Jersey, and they brought in a consultant that said, you know, a growth consultant. And they said, you got to get rid of the old guy on the piano. And the pastor and my buddy, they were the two old heads. The old pastor retired and the pastor's son took over. And literally, they said, you got to get a guy up there with messy hair, playing a guitar, with his shirt untucked and wearing sneakers.
Skinny jeans. Yeah.
Yeah. And he has to be able to relate to people. And you got to turn the lights down low in the sanctuary and put bright lights on the stage, but different colored lights. Within a week of that consultant, ministry growth consultant coming in, my buddy got fired.
Mm.
And that was many years ago. And that turned me off from what I call contemporary Christianity and forced me back down, not down a new road, but back down an old road of liturgy, which I remember growing up singing things like the doxology, growing up hearing glory be to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Ghost as it was in the beginning, saying those things, saying peace be with you, and the proper responses, and also with you. When I was a little boy, and man, did I return to that hard.
Yeah.
Real hard. To never leave it. And I remember when I was in Poland last summer, Agnieszka, when I said, give me a tour of Warsaw. So we went to a few places, but we ended up going to a whole bunch of churches and cathedrals because she knew that I would like them. And she knew that I loved classical music. So she took me to the church that had Chopin's heart in it. Everyone thinks Chopin was Polish, but he was French. And before he died, he told them, when I'm dead, I want you to take my heart out of my body and bring it to Poland because my heart is in Poland. Wow. So she took me to the church where Chopin's heart is. Now, how deep is that? And I'm in that sanctuary and just watching old Polish people with rosaries wrapped around their hands, with their head, bowed, at various times during. This was not a church service. This is like just in the middle of a day, an average day, and just feeling so at home. I'm like, yes, no guitars, no guy with an untucked shirt. You know what I mean? I just loved it. And that was just another confirmation for me that I made the right move.
Some of those modern church models reminds me of the way that Lou Pearlman used to put together a boy band. We got to have the tough kid, we got to have the cute kid, we got to have, like all these elements have got to be there or else it's not a real boy band. Yep.
Yeah, the monkeys.
Oh, now that one worked.
It did. It was a formula. It was a formula.
Yeah,
George, we didn't get into it. I also went to seminary with a focus on church planting, and
yes,
my take on it is, I think what happened there at that church is tragic, with the untucked shirt and all of that, because I think there are opportunities for new churches to reach people that have never been reached by the church, that would not fit in a traditional church setting. I mean, in many respects, you talked about your channel reaching those people and being a gateway. There are so many opportunities for those people, and I fall much more on the church planting as the solution to that side, because if you start something new and fresh, to reach those people, it can be their thing and be their identity without taking and disassembling something that has been in place and established. And,
yes.
To hear that, unfortunately, a lot of churches have tried to make a transition to new and hip and cool and have, unfortunately, just harmed people that have been part of their community, part of their family
Yeah.
in the process.
Yeah.
They kind of took the heart away from the ministry that they were doing.
Yeah. That's so true. That is so true.
Well, I think we'll probably wrap up on this.
We've gone a while here. Yeah, we've gone an awful long time.
Yeah, one last comment came in. I think it's a great place to leave. George said, "First time live with you all. Seems I needed this show. Thank you." So
awesome. Nice.
Glad that that it was able to strike a chord with you and anybody else. George, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
Hanging out. Man, this has been just a joy.
It's fun. It was good to get to know you guys personally. And, it's funny when you watch people for a long time online. One of the things that I get all the time is people say to me, I feel like I know you. And I get that. And that's how I feel about you guys. I feel like I know you guys. I have been a fan from afar. I watch everything you do. Everything. You are American Idol to me. I never miss it. There's people that watch The Voice, American, like they got it, that, hey, people that say, oh, I can't do that. My show is on. What you guys do is one of my shows that I don't miss. So,
wow, that's awesome.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, should I say thanks, dog?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. That's a good one.
It's so funny that Seth said, what a joy this has been. That's not a word I throw around very often. And I was thinking the same thing. It has been such a joy and a pleasure to spend time with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and helping us become the four of us. I do want to put in a plug. Next week, we have joining us on Tuesday, Northwest Piper, Northwest. Oh, dang it. His channel name has slipped right out of my head. Tom. He was recommended by 3 different people. First 3 comments out of the block when we said, hey, we're thinking about inviting some people to join us. And so we reached out to him and he says, yeah, why not? I got nothing going on.
And
George, who could think of a better endorsement than that?
That's right.
That's right.
And Georgia, in case anyone's been living under the rock, where can people find you?
Yeah. My YouTube channel, which is my name, George Bruno. Twitter, which is that's my side with horns and a tail. Twitter. I would say it's more R-rated. My Twitter is R-rated. Yeah, I have different audiences, no doubt. My mother does not watch or does not read my Twitter at all. I wouldn't want her to. Instagram, as Instagram has become more video friendly, I've taken a lot of snippets of my YouTube stuff and put it on Instagram with great reception. It has been received quite well. And I definitely have different audiences. So either Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube are the best places to find me. And I like to say there's something for everybody. And if you don't like something, eventually the horse that you like does come around on the merry-go-round, eventually I'll put out something that you like. But it is guaranteed that you will be offended at least once pretty quickly.
All right. Hey, on that note, in the doobly-doo down below, we will put links to at least those 3 platforms that I know that you're on. I enjoy you on all 3. One last thing. You commented about the women that watch you. Almost every single video, every single tweet that I see you put out, there's somebody there, especially when you're speaking on masculinity. There will be a woman who will chime in and say, well, I'm a woman, and I thought this was great.
Yeah.
And so you have a broad audience, and I don't mean that in the sense of a broad audience, but
That's a good one. I like that.
No pun intended, but we'll take it.
Yeah, right.
Among that audience. So thank you again, George, for your time. And with that, I will say to the rest of you, we'll see you next week. Make it a great week.
See ya.